Hello, and welcome to Imbalancing the Spectrum. I am your host, Jose, and today we will be talking about something different. It is something that I define as spiritual, but the word spiritual can have different meanings for different people. What I see as spiritual, some people might see it as metaphysical, witchcraft, nonsense, and that's totally fine. I'm okay with that. For me, the word spiritual is connecting with yourself, connecting with the universe, and having that intuition, that knowing, yes, I know this is true because I can feel that it's true in me. It might not be for another person. My reality is separate from somebody else's. So, what I'm talking about, the topic of today, are Mandela effects. So, what a Mandela effect is when you have a collective consciousness that remembers something in a different manner that another collective consciousness um, does. That's what a Mandela effect is. When I say collective consciousness, I mean a group of people, and these people don't have to have communication with each other at all to have that same memory. So, some people, and this is a big one. Actually, let's start with how the term Mandela effect originated. It originated with this paranormal researcher. I forget her name. I think it's Fiona Lovegood. No, wait. Fiona Lovegood is from American Horror Story. uh, it's Fiona something, I'm sure. I'll actually look that up right now just to fact check myself. So her name is Fiona Broom, and she adopted this term, Mandela effect, because she remembered that the president of South Africa at the time, Nelson Mandela, she remembered him dying in the 80s while he was incarcerated, while he was in prison. But other people did not remember that. She went to a conference and she met other people with the same memory as her. And that's what I was saying earlier. You don't have to meet these people to have the same memory as somebody else. But these people had that same memory of Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 80s. But apparently, he was released in the 1990s from prison. So that's where the term comes from. So I'm going to talk about one specific Mandela effect. It's probably one of the most controversial Mandela effects that exists. And it's about Shazam and Kazam. So many people remember Shazam being a movie about this genie and these kids. The actor's name, Sinbad, played the genie. And Kazam is also about a genie, but Shaquille O'Neal plays the genie. So at this moment, um, I actually looked it up before coming on. So Kazam exists and people remember it. But there are also people who remember the other movie, Shazam, with Sinbad. And the reason I bring that specific Mandela effect is because it's the one I go to check if that Mandela effect has changed. And what do I mean by that? That's actually what leads me to this movie I saw the other day, The Butterfly Effect from 2004 with Ashton Kutcher. And so this movie kind of touches on quantum jumping. And what is quantum jumping? Quantum jumping is when your own consciousness jumps from your current timeline onto an alternate timeline. Um, a lot of the time, it might be minuscule changes, not that drastic, that you might notice. And in other cases, I've heard stories of people waking up and living a completely different life. And they're labeled as schizophrenic, crazy, out of their mind. But these people that wake up into a different life from night to day, it completely completely freaks them out, and I could get why that would happen. And that's what the movie kind of touches on, because just one change um changed all of his future life or present life. We'll get into that later to clear that up. But yeah, going back to people waking up and um, living a different life than what they did or what they remembered living, um, similar things can happen with people on a minuscule level. Maybe you might remember your parents taking you to school, but if you bring it up, they'll tell you, no, you took the bus. We didn't take you to school. Or the other way around. You remember taking the bus to school? And they'll tell you, no, we always took you to school. You didn't take the bus. Stuff like that. It's minuscule, but it is a change. A change from what you remember. And most of the time, we're told to brush those memories off because they're incorrect. My memory, it doesn't work with detail, it works with feeling. What I feel um, that is right to me, or no, let me rephrase that. So, when I remember, I feel a certain emotion or feeling. I could feel being scared, being ashamed, feeling suppressed, not being able to be myself, voice myself. Like, that's how my memory works. And once I feel that feeling, I'm able to recall where that memory or where that feeling has come from. Or, I mean, recall the memory. I'm able to recall the memory where that feeling is coming from. That's how my memory works. It doesn't work with detail. I may remember some details here and there, but mostly it's feeling. And it's kind of like a puzzle for me. I have to recall the memory, put it together with a feeling, and then I go, okay, do I remember any details? And just go from there. And or other times I'm able to recollect some stuff, and I've proven this. I've proven this with my family. I'm able to recall something through feeling, and I put together the little details that I can remember, and then they'll be like, yeah, that's exactly how it happened. Or they'll be like, no, that's not how it happened at all. Or in between, like, you're right, but you're also wrong. It happened that way, but it also happened this way. So, to me, that's a constant feeling that I've had. Um, and actually, I noticed this back in 2019. Yeah, it was 2019 when I started feeling this way. I actually wrote it down. Let me get my notebook real quick. I put it to the side. Oh, and by the way, if you're feeling weirded out by the conversation, just don't take it too seriously if you're not into it. Just see it as a conversation for shits and giggles. But on my part, I do take it seriously, but not too seriously where I'm like, no, you're wrong. That's not what happened. No. I'm like, it is and it isn't. I'm living in Schrodinger's cat or Schrodinger's box. Better said, I kicked the cat out, and now I'm living in the box. And if you don't know Schrodinger's cat was an experiment where it's just a theoretical experiment. If you put a cat in a box with a poison vial or something like that, you won't know if the cat is alive or dead uh, until you open the box. So therefore, theoretically, the cat is both dead and alive at the same time. That's Schrodinger's cat for you. That's what I'm living. And this notebook that I'm going to read off of, it was supposed to be originally my BOS, Book of Spirit. Some people call it Book of Shadows. I went with Book of Spirit. Um, Only because it felt right to me. But I used it a small portion as a BOS, and most of it is just my art and drawings and doodles. But what I wrote in this part was 2019. 2019 was an ongoing Mandela effect for me. Came to the conclusion I was subconsciously quantum jumping constantly. Now, 2020, I believe that I intentionally, by accident, I quantum jumped to a timeline where a lot of my history changed from what I remember. After the convo I had with my brother, it's sort of a confirmation. He has NPC traits, and that's not an offense. Just, I'm not using it as an offensive term. He has NPC traits like sticking to the correct memories and subtly attempting to convince me that our brain is funny that way. So, that one time that I spoke to my brother about this, uh, he was like, no, your brain can create false memories, and um, sometimes we believe them because they feel real to us, but that's not how things happened. And I remember saying, well, how do you prove if it happened or if it didn't? He said, you don't. It's just something that is, that our brains are funny that way. So, I've mentioned I work with energy. And this is an entry where I kind of explain to my comprehension or my level of comprehension. So if it gets a bit confusing, ask questions if you'd like. I'm open to answering them. But it says alternate self and memory integration. Earlier, I envisioned, and by envisioned I mean I had a vision. Earlier, I envisioned the collection of my alternate selves, each with their own skills and experience, integrating with me. A white being holds all of them formed as an interweb and stores them in the center of its body. In the shower, I redo this and add this timeline's memories to merge as well. Earth presented itself as let me reread that. Earth presented itself as a ring/donut, but in the center was an eye's pupil. Earth multiplied and interlined with itself, meaning it just swallowed itself up. In parentheses, I put timeline up to now. Period. Then integrated as one, and the same white being held a perfect interwebbed sphere and stored it. After that, I opened my eyes and put 2 handfuls of conditioner. As I washed it off, my eyes were closed and came to realize I felt as if I floated. The more I focused on this feeling, the more I noticed I felt gravity on my right foot. Gravity that turned to temporary pressure as my left foot quickly gained gravity. It felt like landing with Mary Poppins' umbrella. I quickly realized that I had been acting under observation, meaning the thoughts were mine, but not the actions. Half of me felt like it was instinct or habit, while the other half was rational, meaning I was thinking about the actions I was taking because I didn't recognize them as my own. And I'm talking about actions in the shower, things I normally wouldn't do. And then I put under quotes, quantum jumped by accident. So, ever since 2019, or after 2019, I've had the habit of checking once in a while. I don't obsess about it, but I do check the Shazam Mandela effect. And it's happened to me that sometimes I look it up and one movie doesn't exist, but the other one does. In some cases, it's been Kazam Exist, which is the Shaquille O'Neal movie. But Shazam doesn't. And in other instances, it's been Shazam Exists, Kazam doesn't. And then I've also had the experience that neither film existed. And I only checked that because it's the most talked about, the most controversial, and the one that you will find that most changes. At least in my experience, I've noticed that it changes the most compared to other Mandela effects. Also, there's this Mandela effect I've encountered, which I found pretty funny. Um, it's about the Twilight Saga, the movies, not the books. I haven't read the books, but I have seen the movies. I'm not really into them, but my aunt is, and I met someone else that was really into the Twilight movies as well, just as much as my aunt was or is. And um so they both had this experience. They don't know each other. They haven't talked to each other. And my aunt one day she asked me if I could look for the Twilight movies. I'm like, "Yeah, you stream them on your contour box." And I look them up, and she tells me there's one missing. I'm like, no, there's only five. There's only five movies. And that's only because they made Breaking Dawn, I think it was Breaking Dawn. They made Breaking Dawn into part one and part two. And she said, no, the one that's missing is the one that happens 18 years after Bella and Bella's and Edward's baby was born. Uh, and she told me the whole plot. And basically, she told me they focus on her daughter. It's not about Bella and Edward anymore. But on her 18th birthday, she um she's visited by Jacob, which Jacob had been looking after her, are the words she used, throughout the years. So he had been spying on her, watching her grow up. When she hits 18, um, by this time, uh, Jacob introduces himself, and he basically imprints onto uh I don't know her name, Bella's daughter. He imprints onto her daughter, and the same thing happens for her daughter. So they fall in love, supposedly. They fall in love. They have sexual relationships with one another, and she told me that they get pregnant. Well, she gets pregnant, and they run off because they're not supposed to be with one another. It's forbidden. So after they run off, they have their baby, and the werewolves and the vampires are fighting for the child's uh, rights, I guess, or the child's bloodline. The vampire clans say they have blood of vampires, so that means they're vampire. The werewolves say she has, or he, I don't know what the baby was, has um werewolf blood, so they're a werewolf and belong with a werewolf. So another war happens. So she told me this whole plot, and I told her, no, that doesn't exist. That movie doesn't exist. And she told me, no, I went to the theaters and uh, I saw the movie. And she tells me, look it up. You'll see it's true. I look it up and I show her, no, no, that movie doesn't exist. But what I did find was that there was a movie in the talks with the same plot that she described, but it was scrapped. It was scrapped because of the conflictive plot. Edward kind of grooming Bella's daughter, or not Edward, Jacob. Jacob grooming Bella's daughter into imprinting with one another. So that was the conflictive part. And being that I don't know how old Jacob was during that last movie, but I'm assuming 18, 19 years old, so that would make him at least 36 years old, uh, having relationships with an 18-year-old. And that's where the conflict was. The fact that he spied on her throughout her life, watching her grow up. That's what it was, and that's why it was scrapped. I was kind of shocked when I read the article. I was like, the plot existed. I told my aunt the plot existed, but they scrapped it because it was gross. That's not what the article said, but that's what I told my aunt. It was just a gross plot. And up to the day, she's like, "No, that movie exists and I've already seen it." And with my aunt, um she's she has these moments where she'll tell me, "I already saw that movie. It's been out for a while." And I'll tell her, "No, they just released it." Like, for example, Aladdin live action and Pinocchio live action. I was like, let's watch that movie. They just released it on Disney Plus. We started watching the movies, each one, and for each one, she said, "This movie already came out a long time ago. This isn't new." And I'm like, "No, it's new." And for both movies, she told me the plot of it, uh, like the details that differentiate from the cartoon versions. And if you haven't watched Aladdin, the live action, plug your ears. So she she told me how the movie ended, and I'm not gonna spoil anything if you haven't watched it. She told me how the movie ended, and it did. It did end that way. Same thing for Pinocchio. Uh, she told me that the blue fairy um was kind. I don't even remember what word she used, but um she did tell me that something specific about the blue fairy that once I was watching it, I was like, what the fuck? Um, and she told me that there was this weird part in that I forget what it's called. The island that they take the misbehaving kids to, and how they get turned to donkeys. And um she said it was a bit more dark in the live action than it was in the movie. And yeah, I do agree. It was a little bit more dark in the live action. But that's not the only thing she told me. She told me other details, and I can't remember them right now. Uh, but my point is that she has these moments of, I've already seen it, it already came out, when they're brand new, and I can't explain that. It's a type of Mandela effect, maybe, or maybe she's just a time traveler.
Oh.
No, but real quick, going back to my journal entry, when I did that in the shower, integrating with alternate self, so, um, in order to fill you in to the details, the way that works is, um, I envisioned myself uniting with different consciousness, and a consciousness is your perception, your mind, your behavior, your belief system. So that's your consciousness. It has nothing to do with your vessel, the body that you live in. But what what happened to me was that I did that as an experiment, and that's why in my other entry it said that a lot of my history had changed because I did that. Um and also it was before that, before I did the integration, uh there was a lot of things that were changing, so I was like, what's going on? I went within myself and spoke to the universe, spoke to God, let me know what's going on because a lot of my history is changing and I want to know why. This is why I had that vision in the first place. So when I was in the shower, I, from what I saw in the vision, I took that and I started working with that. That's why I wrote, um, intentionally by accident, I quantum jump. Intentionally by accident. My intention was to figure out why it was happening, but my intentions weren't to quantum jump. But it taught me why a lot of my personal history was changing in other people's perception. So what what this did was it gave me clarity. It gave me a clarity of how some things work. And in order to quantum jump, you have to have an alternate willing consciousness. Uh, by willing consciousness, I do mean that in I'm trying to put it to words. To put it in basic terms, your your alternate consciousness, your alternate self is also willing to have a change, to make a change. So basically, you swap consciousness. You retain your memory, you retain your behavior. I've been told I'm different from 3, 4, 5 years ago. And uh, that I'm like, no, I haven't changed. But because my perception, my consciousness, stayed the same before quantum jumping. Um, Actually, there's this huge, huge change that happened, and it continues to be the same. In my personal experience, quantum jumping changes little parts here and there. I don't do drastic changes. And the reason for that, I can only assume that it's because, uh, for the most part, my personal life is inactive, and it's just stay at home, go out when I need to, not for fun. There's this thing that, uh, when you have no motion, time does not advance. I believe that that was a quote from the movie, and my perception of that quote is the only way to achieve your dreams, your goals, is to get out into the world, to interact with people, to have different experiences. If you don't do that, a lot of your life is going to stay the same. So that's why, in my experience, quantum jumping, a lot of it stays the same. There are no drastic changes. Um, Before I even knew about quantum jumping, this was back in 2015, 2016, 2017, around that time. Um, I want to say 2017 because I think it was after my brother graduated. So 2017, let's just say that. I met this guy and he was very spiritual. He did yoga. That was his spirituality, doing yoga. The chakras, chakra alignment, and all of that. That was his spirituality. And I only hung out with him 2 or 3 times. In the time that I did hang out with him, I learned that he knew Korean. So, uh, I told him, I do remember this. I told him it would be cool to learn Korean, but that I was focused on learning Latin root languages. At the time, I was trying to learn Italian, um, and then later on Portuguese. Right now, I don't know those languages fluently, um, but right now I'm focusing on French, and I've actually stuck with French more than I did Italian or Portuguese. But he did offer to teach me, and I remember saying, "Yeah, maybe in the future we could do that." And one day I wake up, go to my journal, and I was gonna write something, and um, I see these characters, and I could recognize them as Korean. And in the bottom, it said, "I like coffee," in my writing. And I remember asking my brother, um, "Did you write this?" I didn't write this. He said, "No, I didn't write that." I'm like, "Okay." So, um, looking back now, if I would have continued hanging out with him, maybe I would have learned a little bit of Korean. But when I woke up to that note, I like coffee in Korean. Um, it, I- it was just confusing to me. Like, why would I write that, and why would I write in Korean? And yeah, like looking back now, if I would have hung out with him, he would have taught me. So maybe my consciousness quantum jumped on its own to a timeline where I was learning Korean, where I was learning Korean through him. And that makes sense to me. It may not make sense to you, but it makes sense to me. And that was just one of not just a Mandela effect, but there was physical proof. Um, because I translated the English translation I like coffee on Google Translate, and it gave me the same exact characters. And it weirded me out at the time. Now I'm like, okay, uh certain choices that we make um define what timeline we're going into. Nothing matters except the present. Your past doesn't matter anymore. Your future doesn't matter because it doesn't exist yet. All that matters is the present and the choices you make in the present. And yes, of course, your choices can affect your future, but they can't affect your past. So, anyway, I did bring that up just to clear up some things. And well, moving on to this movie. This movie, I believe I mentioned it, maybe not. It's called The Butterfly Effect from 2004. Ashton Kutcher plays the main role. Yeah, I did mention it. So this movie is about this kid, and he had never met his dad, but he starts having blackouts, and he has no idea why he's having blackouts. So at some point, his mom tells tells him that he's sounding like his father before uh he was admitted into a psych ward. And that's where he meets his father. And um well, he blacks out during his visit, and his dad tries to kill him. So later on, um these blackouts keep happening, and it usually happens when something traumatic happened to him as a kid. Until one day, his mom decides something very traumatic happened, and he couldn't remember what happened. He was trying to, but he couldn't. She saw on the news that um, there was an explosion, and that's when she decided we need to move. So they move towns, they move cities, and this is just minor details. I'm not giving too many details because I don't want to spoil it for those who would want to watch it. And just so you know, there are three Butterfly Effect movies, but they're each different characters. Um, but in this one, I think this one was one of my favorite ones. But anyway, so 7 years pass by and he's in college, university, and he's studying to have a psych major to better understand human memories. But at some point, he he relapses into his blackouts after reading one of his memory journals. So this memory journal triggered a memory and he blacked out. So when he reads his journal, he has this epiphany: if I can heal my scars, I can heal Kaylee's. That's a direct quote. And his name is Evan in the movie, and Kaylee is his love interest. The reason he has this epiphany is because um, Kaylee killed herself, and he rereads a journal to trigger a blackout, and I loosely use the word possess. He possesses his younger self to attempt to change the outcome of their past. That's kind of like child work. Um, some people call it child work, shadow work, child healing, trauma healing. It has different names, but basically it all works the same way. Not in the movie, in reality. In reality, basically you revisit times of trauma in your past and you try to make yourself feel better, heal yourself, heal your younger self. And that's done through different techniques. It just depends on what you do, on what technique you prefer. The way I've done it is I revisit my points of trauma and I take my younger self aside in my mind and I talk to my younger self. Hey, I know you feel this way, but you are worth so much more than what you think you do or you are. And I have this long personal conversation with myself depending on the trauma that I'm trying to heal. And I used to take my younger self out of that situation that created trauma, and I would create a space in my mind, in my imagination, and my go-to is the beach. I place them in a beach, give them a button that they could press so that anything they need can pop up. If they want an umbrella, they have an umbrella. If they want a chair, they'll have a chair. If they want a beer, well, no, not a beer, but if they want a drink or anything that child, my child self needs or wants, they can have it just by pressing that button. And that's how I've done trauma healing in the past. I do it a bit different now, but basically in the movie, he goes back to his past and possesses himself, and that's how he does child work. Except his attempts at uh, shadow work or child work, whatever you want to call it, um, have consequences to his present. So the first time he does this, um, he wakes up in the same college, but he wakes up next to Kaylee. Apparently, they've been together since their teen years. Their teen years. And they have this strong relationship, but flashes of memories of them together come to his present self. And that's because his consciousness is merging with his vessel's consciousness. Now, this doesn't necessarily happen in real life, or at least it hasn't happened to me. I'm not saying it doesn't. Um, but basically, he catches up with bits and pieces. He doesn't get the whole picture. He has to put it together like a puzzle. But like I said earlier, when you're quantum jumping, it is your consciousness that jumps, not your body, not your vessel. Your consciousness is who you are as a person. Your perception, your behavior, your mentality, your feelings based on choices or events, your belief system. They jump into a willing vessel, an alternate version of yourself. Um, and like I said, a willing vessel is hosted by an alternate consciousness that consciously or subconsciously feel a desire to change their present or past. In order to change your present, the past does too, and vice versa. And I'm reading my notes about the movie, and I wrote down something that's interesting to me. Um, Usually, people label quantum jumpers as crazy, even though there is science that support it, but because they call it theoretical, it's not seen as a fact. It's only seen as a fact when it's convenient for political or commercial agendas, such as political Mandela effects or um like when I say commercial, I do mean things that you buy, um like excuse me, fruit of the loom. Fruit of the loom. I remember having a cornucopia, and apparently now it doesn't. And the company itself has said that the cornucopia was there at some point, and all of a sudden it wasn't. They took out the cornucopia. And this was for marketing purposes because people have taken pictures, and actually I've had um underwear and shirts, fruit of the loom, that have uh that don't have cornucopias that I've had since childhood. You you might be saying, why do you have underwear and shirts from your childhood? They're just there. I should throw them out, but I haven't. I've been procrastinating on that. But there's also a lot of people that I've seen on the internet, comments from people that take pictures of old clothes that have cornucopias in them. Um, and I do believe that in some cases, items can quantum jump as well. Because going back to Shazam and Kazam, there are people online that say they have the video cassette of Shazam, the one with Sinbad, um, that they have it and they have the full movie. And they've tried to post it onto YouTube. They digitalize it, post it on YouTube, but it always gets taken down. So they don't do that anymore. Not that I've seen. I would have to do more search on that specific Mandela effect. And another way to see the Mandela effect, is as the collective consciousness quantum jumping at the same time. Collective consciousness is powerful. If you and billions of other people have the same thought, that might come into reality, and all of your consciousness, your collective consciousness, quantum jumps into the same timeline, the same alternate timeline. And well, going back to the movie, so he tries to make things right in his present. He has the perfect life with his first quantum jump. Um, but he made a mistake in his present, or his new present, and he went back to try and fix it, and certain things just kept on getting worse. So he kept on for his new present. When he would come back to the present, it was always a new present. Uh, at one point, he ends up in prison, and he quantum jumps again, and certain things just keep getting worse for his new present, and he doesn't like it, so he does it until he doesn't anymore. So you would have to see the movie because I don't want to spoil it for you. But basically, he learns that by um, visiting his past and making different choices in his past, they affect his present, or his new present as well, because there's different situations that he ends up in until he's completely tired of it and he wants to make it right. And well, he struggles with it. And in the movie, in my opinion, uh they make it so that you think it's a linear timeline. It's not a linear timeline because he keeps creating new timelines. So he's jumping into different timelines. And actually, the second movie, I believe it was the second movie. Yes, yes, it was the second movie. This new guy, he gets in a car crash, and he survives the car crash, but his girlfriend does not. And he goes back into his past to create a better future. And in the second movie, it is a linear timeline, more of a linear timeline. even though he keeps jumping into different timelines, it is more linear because a different choice that he made in the past affected his present, and it's always almost the same. It just changes a little bit drastically, like not being with his girlfriend, or really did he well, I retract my opinion of it being more linear because and now that I think about it, it's more of a linear discovery or a linear self discovery. He learns the type of person that he actually is through jumping through different timelines. The one that is linear, meaning if you go back, you affect the present and you create a paradox for your present. Um, it's the third one. At first, uh, so he uses in the third movie, this new guy, he uses his ability um to work. He uses that's his job, and he takes care of his sister. But when he goes back, something goes wrong, and um he creates a serial killer, and he's trying to find out who this killer is. And the more that he jumps back, the more evidence there is that it's him. Um, but you find out that somebody else was intervening, I guess, to create different timelines, making it their linear timeline because they are multiple people in the movie that can jump, that can quantum jump. So they're sorry, they're creating a collective consciousness that affects the end result. So if these movies sound interesting to you, uh, go ahead, watch them, create your own opinion, comment, and tell me what you think. Um, go ahead and excuse me, hold on. Okay. I was getting a little bit thirsty. But yeah, you could contact me through Insta or my email. My Instagram is imbalancing the spectrum pod, and the email is imbalancing the spectrum podcast at gmail.com. You can send me answers, or well, I guess if I ask a question you could send me answers, or you could send me your opinions, ask questions. If you need advice, um I can go ahead and address that as well. And on my Instagram, I mainly post inspirational quotes and memes, but you could contact me through there as well. So, I guess this is until next episode. Hope all of you are well, and I hope that you've had a good time in these holidays. Happy holidays, everybody. And yeah, until next time. Bye.